Hey, let me just change this over to the right presentation. There we go. And a few slides, and we're away. Okay, two additional words into the title, since it was all sent out in your original programs. Google Mapplets, announced yesterday at Where 2.0 in a very brief session during one quarter of one part of one session at Where 2.0. So this is going to be the first chance that we have to really talk about what exactly Mapplets are and where the project's going. So this is its first real public airing. And given that it was developed by an engineering team here in Sydney, it's pretty cool that we get to do that here at the Developer Day at Sydney. So let me just talk about a little bit about where things are right now on the web and where we've been, things have been going with maps and mashups and things like that. If you were to try and book a hotel right now, you might go to a hotel booking site, and once you'd found your hotel and thought, well, that might be okay, but where exactly is it? You might come to Google Maps, put in the address of the hotel, and then maybe do some driving direction search. You can work out how to get there, or do some local business searches to try and find out interesting things to do around that hotel. So you're kind of like going between different sites to get at what you want. And the story is even bigger if maybe you're trying to put a major investment into buying a new house. You go to a real estate site and you find out what was on the market. Then you go to other sites to find out about the neighborhood. Is this a safe place to live? Is this where I want to be? And then you go and find out some vital information like what the local surf is like, or maybe more practical things like finding out the quality of the local schools, those kind of things. So you could be visiting many sites, and many of them, as exampled here, will actually have a Google map in there that's helping you see this information in a local context. I mean, one thing that my background in geography has taught me is that location is the great integrator. There are statistics that say something like 80–90% of the world's data can in some way be attached to location. So whether it's just somebody's phone number, which you can work out where that is, or whether it's a postcode or actual address or some other piece of information that's tied into what you're looking at, that can actually help you sort of place that information on a map, and it means you can kind of bring all these different things together on a map. So, those were, three little examples, but there are literally thousands of API sites out there all showing interesting and great content. And some of the really popular ones do get, a fair amount of traffic. But there are literally millions of Google Maps users who come to Google Maps trying to find schools, real estate, photos, hotels, restaurants, all those kind of things, coming into the Google Maps site. And one of the things we want to do is, can we find a way, instead of having these thousands of, or alongside having these thousands of Maps API sites, can we find a way of driving traffic to these, cool, innovative developers by finding a way for them to put their content right there into Google Maps. And our solution to this is Google Mapplets. And this is exactly that. It's a way for you to take the mashup that you've written, small amount of work, and pull it straight into the Google Maps, site. And as a preview, because again, this is the idea that we want to get stuff out to developers. We want developers playing with stuff early, get early feedback on what works and what doesn't. Is we made this publicly accessible, but all you need is this magic URL, and you can get there and play with it now. And just to show that this is actually true, let me just refresh this page because I've been making a couple of changes. So you go to that site, maps.google.com/.au/preview, and you'll end up on a site which has this extra little tab, Mapplets. And when you get to that tab, if you're signed in, you'll have the ability you'll see some sampled content up front, and also the ability to go and add off your own things. So just to give you a quick example of finding a hotel. This is one of our partners has put together a quick version of their hotel booking. Okay. Oh, all right. All of them in Sydney, and any prizes for guessing the coordinates of this one? 0, 0. Yeah, okay. So slight bug in their data, but let's go and find the ones we're really interested in. Let's whiz all the way in here. So what you see now is, this is their own content dropped straight into the Google Maps site. And so they have their own info window here with their own content and ability to go off and book and current pricing. And because this is pulling from their own data, then things that we wouldn't be able to do, like room availability, because we know where hotels are, but we don't know what the current rates are or what the availability is for hotel rooms. So this will actually allow you to search for hotels in a particular area and see hotels which actually have rooms available for when you want to be there, which is kind of cool. And one of the things I have booked here is somebody sent me a list of things that I should do when I'm in Sydney, or in fact, when I'm visiting Australia. And obviously, they think I can get quite a lot done. So let's just concentrate on yeah, that's going to be quite a road trip. So that was the hotel I was considering, I think. So one of the nice things is this is displaying information on the map. But what Mapplets actually does is let you go right in and use the Maps API to add some interactivity. So one of the things that's suggested is that I go and visit the Opera House, and being extraordinarily lazy, I just like to check how far exactly is that if I was to to set out and walk that. And with this little measuring tool I have, which is just another maplet that gets plugged in, I can plot out a little walk. I'll just avoid that road, perhaps, and get there and find that it's actually only 1 kilometer, and that's probably the right hotel for me because I can get to the Opera House without breaking a sweat. So that's pretty. This is anything that almost anything that you can do with the Maps API site. You can now embed straight into this. And if I go to this site here, what we have here is a gallery, much like the iGoogle gallery, of things which you can add onto maps. And we see here we've got a real estate maplet, and let's say Chicago Transit and Chicago Crime. I'd love to do a real estate sample for Australia, and although we have some Australian data, we don't have yet much of this sort of ancillary information from third parties that would make it a particularly compelling example. So I now come back here, and you see I've got the additional maplets have been installed. I can switch on Chicago Crime. I can ask for a list of recent aggravated arson, so I can see what's been going on in Chicago. And now I can go to my real estate search, and let's see. That should give us just about everything. Let me get back a list of possible properties. So no aggravated arson's terribly near this one, so I might try this one. One of the things you see here is that because we're on the map site, you get this little list of additional things across the bottom. You've got the to here, from here, so we can get driving directions to this. This isn't something that the developer of the maplet had to write. You just get the option of having this little set of links be there or not be there. And then I've got a search nearby, so I can go straight in and say, well, OK, what I need is a good school somewhere nearby. And again, we're right on the map site. We've jumped straight to a nice close-up view. And let's see. There's a public school right there. And so I'm not getting details and some review information. And if I want, I can actually go in and go straight to one of those review sites. And find out a really good piece of information about how parents rate that particular school, and it can sort of really help my research into deciding whether that's the house that I want to be in. Okay, cool. So let's head back in here. So what exactly is a maplet? Well, what we've done, we've mashed up, to reuse that well-used phrase, mashups, two separate APIs that we use regularly within Google. One is the Google Gadgets API. This gives us the little iframe in the side panel in which the maplet's main user interface is rendered. It gives us a way to access remote data without you having to worry about the fact that you're talking across different domains. And it also gives you a way to store user preferences. So when I've done a housing search in a particular area and I've said, this is the price range I'm looking for, and these are the keywords that I'm interested in, you go away from Google Maps, you come back to Google Maps, and those preferences can be still there waiting for you. And then we've got the Google Maps API. This allows you to put content onto the map. It also lets you listen to events on the map. So you saw with the distance measuring tool, whenever I clicked on the map, it was adding a little path, so that it was totting up the total distance. And so you get to interact with, and you can control the map in some extent. You can change where it's looking, or the zoom level, that kind of thing. And this is a complete maplet, top to bottom. The bits in gray, kind of like top and tailing this, are exactly what you'd expect for a normal iGoogle gadget. It's a module spec. There's the HTML, the XML header module, and then we go into the preferences. Now, you'll notice that one of the features there, highlighted in blue, is requires feature shared map. And that's all you need to do to make a iGoogle gadget into a maplet, is to add that one line. It won't actually do anything terribly exciting with just that one line, but that's all you need. And in fact, you can also run any existing iGoogle gadget within Maps, although it won't interact with the map. And then in green, in the middle there, we've got a mixture of HTML, which is just like, hello world, and that's content that'll appear in the side panel. And then we've got a little script tag with JavaScript in it. And what you'll notice there is we've got, we set up a new GMap2. And in this case, instead of setting up your own map, as you normally would in a Maps API site, where you're getting access to is the main map that's running on Google Maps. And we can create a point, and we can set the center of the map based on that point, create a new marker, and put an info window open with a little message in it. And just to show that this is exactly all that you need to make a working maplet, I'm just going to try and do exactly that. If I go back to the Maplets tab, what we've actually added in the Maplets gallery is a set of developer tools which make it easy to sort of get off the ground and start playing with things. Let's see. And one of the coolest ones is the Scratchpad. I now have far too many of these loaded. Here we go. And this itself is actually a maplet. And I can go into here and come on, copy. Yay, there we go. Just paste the text in and hit preview. And bingo, there we go. We have a running maplet with the little HTML window with the exact message I said. And I just go back here, and you'll see that I had the zoom level set to 2. I can just go and change that, do another preview. We're back to the map, and we're zoomed in. So the scratch pad is a very easy way for somebody to just get familiar with the maplet system, to start trying to develop something. Wouldn't necessarily recommend doing any serious development inside the scratch pad. It's more sort of a toy to play around with. But all you need to do is to take that XML snippet, host it on your own website, stick it on Google Pages, wherever you want, and then you can point your maplet and load it in. And just to show you exactly what I mean by that, you notice this little link here, which is add by URL. And you just drop the URL of wherever you put your XML document, describing it with your maplet content in it. Put it up here, and it'll load straight into Google Maps. Oh, actually, while I'm here, one of the maplets I have installed is this little guy called the Developer Maplet, which by itself is probably the least exciting maplet because it doesn't do anything, except it adds this little reload link to all maplets. So it just sits there. Any maplet I go to has this little reload link. And that means that while you're developing, if you have that installed and you have the maplet you're developing up on the map site, you can click that reload link, and it basically says bypass the proxies. Because we've done, got a lot of effort to make things, fast and responsive, and we've got, if you have your data or if you have your maplet hosted on your server, we'll have a cached copy of it within Google, much as we do within our Google gadgets, so that if you become uber popular and your maplet is getting tens of millions of hits, your server doesn't melt. Hours take the load. But that's incredibly annoying when you're developing, because you make a change, and our proxy just gives you the old version for like 4 hours. So instead, you've got this little reload button that just says, I don't care about the proxies, just go and get the very latest version. And that makes developing a new maplet considerably less annoying. So here's the high-level diagram. There's a user, and there's Google Maps, and they talk to Google Maps. Then we have gmodules.com, and this is the domain in which your maplet will be running. So you have this little iframe on the Google Maps site, and the domain for that particular iframe is gmodules.com. It also acts as a caching proxy, so that requests that you make from your maplet can go through the caching proxy and hit your backend servers to deliver whatever details you need back to the maplet. So room availability or temperatures or whatever else you have that you're displaying in your maplet. And you also have access through this to the Google user preferences. So we have a small amount of storage, not the kind of gigabytes and terabytes that you potentially have through Google GIS, but just a small amount, enough to store the preferences for a particular user, so they can easily get at, they don't have to re-enter, whatever information they put into their maplet last time around. So here's the interesting question for those of you who are, used to doing this kind of development. we have a maplet running inside gmodules.com, and we have the map site running inside maps.google.com. How on earth are they talking to each other? If you know your security policies in JavaScript, that shouldn't be happening. Well, what's happening is that every time we call upon a Maps API function, we actually serialize that request into a string, and we package several requests together. So if you do like 2 or 3 things at once, we'll stick them together in a packet. And then inside the the gmodules.com iframe, we make another invisible iframe. And this invisible iframe is in the maps.google.com domain. And the address of that iframe has a hash at the end of it, you know, the one that you typically use to do an anchor reference. And we put after that hash that little string which we just serialized of your request. When that iframe loads, it pulls that bit of the string out of its own URL and transports it, which it's perfectly able to do because it's now running inside the maps.google.com domain, to the Maps application, which deserializes the string, executes the command, and then sends you back the results. So what we have is a secure communication between remote, untrusted JavaScript, which is running in one domain, and the Maps API, which is running within the maps.google.com domain. So as long as you stick to using the Maps API or a slight variant of it, you have full communication between the two. So it's important to note that all of this communication is taking place inside the browser. So although we're talking between domains, we're not sending information backwards and forwards to servers so that you can make this communication happen. So one sort of interesting side effect of this is that we did have to change the Maps API ever so slightly. So where we would normally have had, if you're familiar with the Maps API, then this would be very familiar code to you, zoom equal map.getZoom. Because of the way this communication system works, we need to make that asynchronous. Because we need to package up the request, send it over, and then package up the response and send it back. So everywhere where there would have been a synchronous call to get information like that, we now have this appended async onto the end of each one. So those previous statement now becomes map.getZoom async, and then you pass in a function which expects the response. So it's not a huge difference between what you had and what you have now, and we intend to make these getZoom asyncs part of the normal Maps API in the near future, so that you'll have, if you want, very, very little porting to do. You can write it once and have it run in both environments. So there are a couple of other differences with the Maps API. You're slightly restricted. You can't completely change the way in which users expect the Maps API, the Maps site to work. Installing your map shouldn't make zooming in become zooming out, although I guess you could sort of do things like that. So there are some things you can't do. You can intercept clicks, and you can set viewports, and you can do other things, but you can't do something like disable dragging of the map, which would take us back about 5 years in terms of mapping technology. The other thing you can't do is you can't run JavaScript within the map itself. So when you have those info windows and you send information into them, they won't have any JavaScript in them. The CSS is constrained because some of the things that you're allowed to do in CSS is execute JavaScript. And that's just part of the security side of things, is that you run your JavaScript within the gmodules domain and leave the maps site to run the map site. But you can sidestep this to some extent because you can open an info window that has its own iframe in it. So you can put JavaScript and whatever else you want. YouTube videos I've seen done inside the info window. That said, and this is just sort of advice to developers. You have access to the whole Maps API, and you can write maps, Mapplets, which are essentially the same. But there are some things which, because of this transport protocol, which does add a little bit of latency, there are things that it's advisable not to do. And in fact, this holds true pretty much for normal map sites now. And you'll hear more about the Maps API and things that are in it from Bo Majescu later in the day. But one thing you might be tempted to do is I've got a cool collection of 800 sites that I want to show somebody, and I'll just make an array of 800 things, and I'll loop through, and I'll put them on the map. Don't do that. The user will be kind of waiting around for quite a while. Instead, if you have fairly static data that you want to show, then encode it up as XML. Sorry, as in XML format, it's KML. Or GeoRSS works pretty well too. And again, towards the end of the day, you'll be hearing a lot about the capabilities of KML and what it can do in Google Earth. And you can use Google Earth even if you want to author this data. And when you do that, you're putting a file out on the server somewhere which has the same information which you would have written in code, but instead now it's this static document which we can cache. And when we come to display it, we can do cleverer things. So if you have 1,000 markers, we can show the relevant subsample for where the user is looking, sort of intelligently, rather than sort of crawling the browser by having it try to display too much information at once, or processing information that's not even on the screen at that point. And if you put one of these files out on the web, then within the Maps API, 2 lines of code will add all of that data onto the map in one shot. And that's particularly in the Mapplets, and it holds true just for the Maps API in general, this becomes a much, much more efficient way to show a large quantity of data onto the map. So to give you an idea of how Mapplets fit into the big picture, if all you want to do is create your cool map of the things you did while you were on holiday, then Mapplets aren't for you. You can just go to My Maps and use the fantastic editing tools that are there to like mark up what you did and make a map that way. If you're creating a much larger map, or if you have the experience to write a server that can generate KML files, then KML may be the right format for you to get your data out onto people's maps inside Google Maps. But if you want the interactivity, if you want the power that the Google Maps API gives you, if you want to make a compelling experience that people can play with, and then hopefully capture people's attention and drive traffic straight to your site, then Mapplets will give you that interactive experience that you can embed straight into Google Maps. So right now, given that we launched yesterday, the Google Maps directory has around 30 or so Mapplets. Some developed by external partners, some developed by Googlers internally. If you want to be famous, and if you want to have like the highest ranking Mapplets out there, now is the time to get them in. Because you won't be lost amongst thousands. You'll be right there amongst like the first 50 or so. And you've got a head start on a lot of other people out there. So let's get some Australian Mapplets front and center and in this directory. And it's also worth noting that the iGoogle directory is pretty smart in that it's ranking based on usage, but it ranks by country. So if you write something that's relevant to a particular region, and lots of people in that region use it, then you can become the #1 Australian Maplet. And when people come to the directory from an Australian IP address, and they're looking at the directory, they won't see a ton of irrelevant stuff to do with the US. They'll see your maplet right up there, hopefully, on the front page. So memorize that, maps.google.com.au, if you like, /preview, and you're there and you're playing with this, and you'll find links to documentation. You can go and look at the sample Mapplets that we've already written. You can go and look at the source code for those. If you have an experience with the Maps API, this should be easy for you. If you have experience with the Gadgets API, then you'll have a head start on how all of that works. Go crazy, and we want to see really cool Mapplets coming from this excellent development community.